This is what I usually do, prepping beforehand, and I didn't have a chance to do everything yet, so I'm trying to figure out today's episode. But what I normally do, as I told you guys before, this is why I have Magic Mind in the morning. If you don't know what Magic Mind is, it's more of like a clear energy. It doesn't give you the jitters. It's got all the adaptogens you need. It's got everything, and I've been talking about it for a little bit on the show, so you know. And it is fantastic. And it really, I think Brett Sheridan was the one who initially told me about it. So here you go. It's got like an orange juice taste that I really like, but it's my focus. My focus is better when I use it. And it's like I said, it's a clean energy. And I love that they say do more, stress less. What I love about it also is if you want, you go and check out the link in the description here. We can get 48% off your first subscription of Magic Mind, or you can get 20% off the first time purchase. But you got to use that code BIGTHING at checkout. If you go to magicmind.com/bigthing, you can do it. And it's been starting my day off wonderful. Wonderful. So I would highly suggest it. It's Magic Mind. All right. Thanks for joining me. Get that link. What the hell did I do now? What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to UAP Tuesday here on The Big Thing. And, man, we got a lot to talk about this week. Tons. There's so many different reports and so many things that are out there right now that we have to dive into. And one of those things, we had Tim Gallaudet on the show not too long ago, and it's good to see that his report about the USOs is gaining more traction. And more people, whether it's Richard Dolan and other people, are saying how important it is that should pay more attention to what's going on in the oceans, right? And there's a report and there's an interview that I'll show from Richard Dolan where he talks about how it's covering like the whole damn planet. So it's not just the oceans that we're seeing here in the States, but that goes to the bigger topic of what we're going to talk about here today, whether it's this thing we're going to talk about in India where there's some more footage there. There's this stuff that they're talking more so in Peru. And there's always this comment that comes in every once in a while about how come it's only the States that sees UAPs? It's not. And one of the things that they talked about in the Soul Foundation was that one of the ways that disclosure comes in, or catastrophic disclosure, rather, is when other countries start dropping this stuff. And it does seem that is a possibility. And I think that's ultimately where the title of this episode will come out is, will catastrophic disclosure come with other countries' disclosure? That's really where it's going to come down to, because there's so much. And then this is a report. I just did a video. There is another channel that we have called Down to Earth with Kristian Harloff, which is my daily UAP, well, Monday through Friday. I talk different stories of what's going on in the world of UAP news. And I did this video, and I've said it as much too. I didn't know what, I still don't know what the hell the Havana Syndrome really is. I didn't see the whole 60-minute things, but I saw a part of it. And the only thing that I know is that people are linking it back and forth, and some people say, oh, it could be connected to what Russia's doing from the UAP technology they have and all this. And I don't know. All I know is that it's another report. And there's other footage that's coming out. And my guest today is going to be Attack Peter. And we're going to talk about basically this footage that's coming out. This other footage. I sent him this thing that someone sent to me. And we're like, it could be CGI, but what the hell? If it's real, who knows? Because this is nuts. Now, this is the problem that we're in with the technology that we have and the ability and the computers that we have to make anything look real. There's more of these freaking alien interrogations that are coming up, these videos that are popping back up from like the 90s that people think are real, and you can't tell. So we're going to discuss that. And then we have an exclusive interview with Paul Hynek, the son of Project Blue Book's Alan Hynek, and basically part of Blue Book, then left and realized how real the phenomenon was. And Pavel is going to have a lengthy chat with him that we're going to air in just a little bit here today. So if you're brand new to the channel, you've never been here before, do me a favor, subscribe to the channel. We're at 135,000. We started out strong. We're pushing forward, and we really, if you're here, you just discovered this, and you like to talk about this thing, whether you're someone who's asking questions on the side of, I don't know, I'm not sure if I really believe a lot of this stuff, I'm on the fence, or hardcore believer, whatever it is, ask questions with us. Subscribe to the channel. We're on Apple Podcasts, we're on Spotify, on the Down to Earth with Kristian Harloff podcast feed, but we're on this channel every single Tuesday. So make sure you do that. Check it out. And it's myself, it's Attack Peter. Here we go. What's up, everybody? Welcome back. It is The Big Thing UAP Tuesday. And as I say, each and every week, more and more news coming out. And I'm so glad that I got this crew that I have talking this stuff with me, too. And one of my buddies, actually one of the first guys to start talking about it with me, very talented artist, Attack Peter. What's up, Attack Peter? How are you?
If you start calling me Attack Peter, we're going to have a problem.
I know. How are you, Peter? What's going on?
Good, man. Everything's good. Today I'm representing, every time I talk to you about this, I feel like my mind shifts on it. Maybe that's everybody, following it. But today I feel like I'm representing the people who are like, what the hell's going on now for real? Because now I feel like I'm seeing more incredible video than I've ever seen before. But I'm also aware of all the video software that's out there, like the Sora and people just like the Corridor crew debunking stuff. And it's killing me. It's like, I don't know what it's like. It's like, it's like 10,000 spoons when all you need is a knife.
Well said. What's funny about that is because I was walking around at the mall and someone sent me it was with my family, and I was walking around the mall and someone sent me this video. And anytime I get sent these videos, I send it to you and Riley like right away. Yeah. And I sent this to you, and you're like, "Well, what is that?" I said, "I have no idea." Someone sent it to me, and I have no idea what the hell it is. And let me play it for the audience.
Play it, please.
And then we'll talk about it. All right. So here's this thing, and it's racing across, and it's got like these little, like, I don't know, spikes on the side, and then the jet comes flying after it, and there's a motorcycle on the side. I mean, so I don't know, because what's funny about it is if you look at when you look at that thing that's flying across, remember that red one that I sent to you?
Yeah,
it's very similar to that red thing that I saw when I was barbecuing.
Did you see spikes on it on the video? You just mentioned that. I don't see spikes on it.
Zoom in on it. Have you zoomed in on it?
No.
Yeah, you got to zoom in on it. So here, I'll zoom in on it.
Oh, yeah, I kind of see them. You know what's crazy? There's a Pokemon that looks like that. And it also, every time I see that craft, I think of, there's another video out there where it shows like some orb craft with little probes like that, and it looks like the freaking coronavirus.
Yeah, right. Like, exactly.
Yeah,
so that's it's got like, it's a little orb, and these little orbs that I talk about, and I got to find the one that I have, and I played it on the show before. The one I saw was like red, but this doesn't necessarily mean it's anything except a piece of technology. It's a whatever, but it's moving real fast, and then the jet's flying. It does. When I said to you, when I sent it to you, I said it does to me seem like a really cool short film that someone put together.
Exactly. Well, now that's the thing. Every time I see one, I think that.
Now, if you saw this 20 years ago, then exactly the way that it is now, you go, I don't know. Maybe that's real, but like I don't know. I mean, this is one of those ones that you could see someone going, yeah, that's that was a well done piece of CGI.
It's like the better they look, the less I want to believe them, and that's such a bummer. You know what I was thinking the other day? I'm like, if I was operating counterintelligence, what I would do is I would get a farm crew of people just generating UFO videos that are incredible,
right?
And just putting them on the internet, so that if one does leak, it'll just be in a sea of other really compelling video, and we won't know.
Well, that's why they're in they're a good spot that they're in, because it's like you can put look at it. They're resurfacing that alien interrogation video. Have you seen that? Again,
there's two that I've seen, but the
one from '94, the one from '94,
where he's like this and like he kind of faints in the chair.
Yeah. So like
I never thought that was real.
But now that one's resurfacing, that more people saying that it is legit. But it's the same. Why would somebody make this up? It's like, what are you talking about? Why do people do half the shit that they do in the world? So I don't know. It's tough when you see these things, because to me, and it's not fair to feel this, by the way, but to me, the one that I'm going to believe is the time where it is so undeniable that every single news outlet and every single person like look at this weird thing that just happened, and it's like this crazy, it's always, but even that, it's always in a farm in the middle of nowhere. The guy just happens to have his motorcycle. He gets off his motorcycle for that right time. What was he doing? He's taking a piss.
That I was trying to figure that one out in my head after that. You sent me that. I'm like, what led to the point where he's perfectly parked?
Right.
And ready for that. So what I had to get, this is what I did in my mind. So I go, okay, the guy was driving somewhere and he saw some stuff happening in the distance. So then he pulled over somewhere, but how did he get so far ahead of them if they're
Right.
going at that speed?
Right.
I couldn't make it out. I couldn't make it up. In my head.
He got it perfectly. He got the thing coming right after him, and then look, the same could be said. I got to find that footage of myself if I find it in time, I can play it as I'm talking. But like I was grilling and I looked up and then this thing just kind of zipped by. I don't know what it was. I have no clue what it was. But so it's possible. It's definitely possible. It's just, and maybe you hear the jets and you start to look up, but I've never even seen this one, and apparently it's like a few years old, and it didn't just happen like recently. It was a few years old. So someone sent it to me, and they're like, "I've been looking for this thing for a bit," and then they found it. So,
to the stuff that I get sent now from doing the show, it's out of control, and there's stuff that I'm like, God, what if I currently have in my possession some like earth-shattering footage or picture? I don't believe that I do,
right?
But that's what it's like because you get so much and it's so compelling. It's not like it used to be where you're like, that's terrible.
Right.
Like it is at a point now where reality is indecipherable from what's not real, and there needs to be like they need to a point, or someone should be. This is a good business. Someone should go and make a channel where they just literally like an effects corridor crew type people just break down every UFO video. Like that's all you do on your
channel. Yeah, but the question is who? The question is who, because it seems like are people who just, no matter what, they're always saying it's not real, it's not real, it's not real. And like, even I think that, and do not quote me on this, but I feel like the corridor crew was like, well, yeah, the stuff that Ryan Graves saw and those, it was not real either. And I'm like,
yeah, they were a little too hard. I think more. But my larger point is that there's so much of this stuff that it would be helpful if there was one place you could go where they would be like, no, this one's BS. This one I actually don't know, right? Because no one can tell you this is for sure real, like, right? But they could actually at least say, I don't know. I can't immediately disprove it.
It's true. So I don't know. I got to ask you guys, from that footage that you saw, where you stand with that? Do you think is there any shot that thing is legit? Or is that just a really good piece of CGI? Or even if it's a piece of CGI, it's like no, it's just a freaking drone that they were chasing after, which is also very possible. So go ahead, put your comments in there. Speaking of more footage, and we'll start with kind of the footage today. This was I follow both Michelangelo and the UFO Joe, and they both post a bunch of great things. But this is more footage, and I think we posted this on our show a while ago. Not this particular video, but like that triangle sphere that's been running around the joint for a little bit. And this is a post from that. This is the black triangle video. Now I believe that we have shown a version of this, but apparently this is much better footage of it. So I'm going to play this same thing. We're going to take a look at it, and then you guys tell me what you think. Okay, here it is. You can see just the triangle and the three lights on the side there. Now, a lot of people think this is a secret program that the U.S. has had, this particular ship, but
the triangle I could see.
Yeah, the triangle.
I've seen different triangles in different videos. Yeah. And then at the end of this video, it starts to like rotate a little bit.
But it's just like, it's the anti-gravity side of it, right? It's just like kind of floating there. And now it just like spins. You see this thing spin. The water's driving me nuts, by the way. And then it just takes off.
All right. Even if it's our technology, like it's still earth-shattering.
Yes. Well, look, there's all these reports. I'm getting more and more convinced about the anti-gravity stuff. Did you see there was this thing once? So the reason I brought it up, and it's funny because Peter and I joked about it before we even started. We like to prep the stories, and we're both like, he goes, I saw your video on the Havana syndrome thing, and he's like, I'm not the guy to talk because I don't know what the hell that is, and clearly you don't either. And I was like, no, exactly. I have no idea. I have no clue. I still don't get it. And I said to Pavel as much when I was talking to him about it, and he's like, yeah, we should cover this. And I was like, I don't know enough about it. He does. I don't know enough about it.
And I'm Cuban. I don't know enough
about it. But what I will say is that what I did see from all these different things, that they're linking it back now to potential UAP stuff with the stuff that potentially that Russia is involved in it, and the stuff that they studied with the UAPs that they have found. But the thing that I started to see, there was this scientist. And are you watching Three Body Problem, by the way?
I watched it all.
I'm about 4 episodes in, which is kind of nuts because when you're watching this thing that's happening and to all the scientists in Three Body Problem, there's like things that are happening to them and a reason that it's happening to them. I started getting into my own, tinfoil hat thing because I'm like, because when there was this woman who was studying anti-gravity and she was a scientist and she was part of this program, she had this video that she released, or this podcast she was doing, or whatever it was, in 2021 or 2022, and she talked about how there are two sides of the government with this stuff that's going on with anti-gravity, and it's like the people who are giving you money that want you to what else did you find? And like, if they don't tell you to shut the F up about it, then they want you to keep working on it. And then there's the other ones who want you dead, right? And she ousted this whole thing. And then in 2022, she passed away. So the question is kind of like, they said it was self-induced, and the question is, then the conspiracy theories start popping up. She was so open about this stuff and all that, but it's like, and all this was connected to the same stuff that was once those Savannah Syndrome videos were going on, but it was the anti-gravity stuff that she was talking about that I'm going, when you hear about all these different, and then you had that whole thing that Jesse Michaels did on his documentary about anti-gravity and all that. It's like, there's way more to this.
Yeah.
And like that, like I wouldn't be surprised if that triangle, if that absolutely is something that we have developed through the anti-gravity program and those things. And I think that we are so far along in the anti-gravity thing. I think that that's, and also why I wouldn't be surprised if it came out to be like, the majority of stuff that you do see zipping around in the skies are things that we have. Maybe there was something that crashed a long time ago. They did crack it with the reverse engineering programs and all those things. It's very, very possible. I just think there's way more to it, to the anti-gravity thing, that people are leading on to.
And if you wanted to develop an alternative fuel source or method of mobility, like imagine if you got to work on petroleum in isolation, or you got to work on whatever, and so if you potentially have an exclusive hold on anti-gravity propulsion, you'd rather push a UAP narrative. Don't come for me saying that I'm like jumping ship on it. I still think both things could be true. I think there's a strong possibility that there is something that we don't understand. It's a non-human intelligence. And also we are parallelly developing this, and we don't want anybody to realize it. So we go, that's crazy shit going on there. You know what I mean?
100%. I also think it's the main reason why they're not giving that, why they don't want disclosure for a lot of the lawsuits that would happen. We know that. We've talked about that at great depth, but it's also like, we don't want you to know about any of the stuff we're working on. Not only do we want you to know about it, we don't want the Russians to know how far ahead we are in anti-gravity stuff. We don't want, China to know what's going on. And then you take that, everything else that's going on with like did you watch that stuff? Did you watch the Darcy Weir doc on the USOs about?
I watched part of it. It was too slow. But I watched him with you, and I watched, there's another video I saw of stuff, but I was telling you about the USO stuff before.
Yeah, you were. And it's funny because I knew that you had mentioned it, and we had talked about that these things were seen going into water. And then there's that one that you sent me not too long ago that I had seen where, and you know what, maybe I'll play that. The one where
that was pretty cool too. It looks like the footage cut from Corbell's footage.
It looks like that's connected to it, right? Yeah. But this is the video that Peter sent me, and this is apparently a UFO that is going through the sky, and then it splits, goes into the water, or goes into the water first, and then splits into two, right? All right, here's that footage. So I don't know. I mean, like I said, and then you get videos like the triangle one that's very clear. You get the one like the potential CGI one of the jet flying past it that are very clear, and then you get the standard ones like that, which is like kind of blurry, but there's something going on. It's moving fast enough, and then it splits into two, and it goes into the freaking water. There's a lot of the theories and things that I think are more credible than others, but the USO stuff is the stuff to me that seems to me, if I had the type of technology that could go under the water and go into depths that these humans, let them try. Let them try to catch us under the water, idiots. Right?
Well, we sent our best. We sent James Cameron. He didn't find anything.
He didn't find anything. But that, and they could barely go scratch the surface. And if these things can go as fast as they can, I think there's a lot more going on in the water And we'll cover the thing that Tim Gallaudet actually posted that article. It was funny. He posted it the day before we had aired our interview. And quite a lot of people covered the interview that we had with him because of the stuff that he was saying. And he said he knows people in the program. He knows these other. I mean, I love that fact that what he said was, I asked him point blank, would you testify if they asked you? He didn't even hesitate, dude. He didn't even hesitate. He said,
yeah. That one was pretty compelling when he was on your show. And he also doesn't strike me as a guy who's necessarily all in. He's just calling what he sees, There's an episode on remote viewing of the Y files that I watched that ultimately ends up with the remote viewer going and detecting a base underwater.
Oh, I've seen that one. I've seen that one.
That one's pretty trippy, dude. Like that's what I think about. Like, because if you go with the theory that we are, another life form here on this planet, sharing it with them, or they seeded us, something like that, wouldn't you want to monitor it, even if it's just a few people? Like, and then where would you monitor from? Somewhere where they can't find you. Don't want, like, that's what our scientists do. They cover themselves like in ghillie suits or whatever to go study wildlife.
Yeah, and it's like,
so it does play really well with that theory.
Yeah, it does, and it does get into a larger conversation that we'll have in just a little bit about just where we are. Like you and I, as far as with information, with where we are as far as how it changes of the excitement and the possibilities, like from 1 minute to the next of what potentially could happen. When's it going to happen? Who's leading the charge? Who's not leading the charge? Who's going to try to thwart the charge? Like there's all that stuff. So we'll get into it. We're going to have a conversation about it. And like I said, we're going to talk about the catastrophic disclosure portion of the fact that what would happen with the country disclosing first. We're going to discuss all that and more. But before we do, I wanted to let you guys know, as I let you guys know each and every week, the reason why we're able to do this show is because we have wonderful sponsors. And our sponsors keep us going, and you guys have been getting those sponsors. And when you get the sponsors, you support the show. So I'm going to tell you about two of them right now, both Mack Weldon and Vessi Footwear, who I love, both of them very much so. Here you go. Vessi. So, John, I got these new shoes, and they have it's like rain wear. It's really, really, it's incredible. I love. They sent it to me a while ago, but I'm so excited to tell them about them. For us, I want to tell you that Vessi has this innovative. It's like footwear, and it's designed for spring weather. It's great. So, Stormburst Vessis are the ones that I really want to kind of emphasize, and they're your go-to for every setting, city streets to outdoor adventures, enhancing your style and activity with ease. So you can, whether it's snowy trails, wet streets, morning dew walk. So whether you're facing unexpected snow or slippery paths, it's so crucial in general to have these. Like I'm planning a move. I've talked about this, but it's been raining a lot in LA. And I've been wearing my vesties everywhere. And you guys seen it. I've been wearing the one hoodie that I have that they sent me. I love it. It's one of my favorite things. I love these hoodies. I've worn it on in so many different videos. They have all weather, all occasion footwear from beach days to snowy commutes. They have so many different things. You should elevate your spring wardrobe when you travel with Vessi's Stormburst shoes. You can discover more at vessi.com/bigthing. Get your pair today and get an automatic 15% off your first purchase at checkout. And be ready to step out into style. It is great stuff. I love Vessi. I really, really enjoy Vessi. Let me tell you about Mack Weldon. Okay, so Mack Weldon, in general, it is a really, really wonderful company. Because a lot of times you want something both ways, right? Me, that I lost weight, but I can't lose weight and keep firing down pizza. Can't do it because we always think that looking sharp means that you got to have the starchy, the Oxfords and the stiff chinos rather than the effortless comfort. It is possible to have it both ways. They have light as air underwear to innovative anti-odor tees and versatile yet comfortable pants. It is so great what Mack Weldon is doing. They have a full range of clothes. And I'm telling you, browse this site. You're going to lose your minds. It's the best. I got, I'm always looking for the essentials in just like socks and underwear, and man, I got it. But then they sent me these pants. I have the t-shirts are so smooth. I wear them I'm just comfortably around the house, but I can also, if I'm going, I put on like a suit jacket the other day and I put it on with it. And then The pants, they fit perfectly. And I had some really comfortable sweatpants. Oh, really great. Okay, now peacocking. You guys are peacocking? That's for the birds. Now, some guys, you just want to go out there, you want to look good without calling attention to yourselves. Well, Mack Weldon Apparel gives you understated good looks for understated confidence. It's not flashy, just classic, always in style, and made from the world's most comfortable performance materials. What that means usually, the performance fabric, usually means that clothes that look or feel techy or shiny, well, these are designed to fit your style and demands of modern life. So I just, I can't even tell you, like, this underwear is really comfortable. The sweatpants for me, I was wearing them the other day, and I just I like ones that just feel like I could go out, whether I'm just walking the dog, but I don't feel like, oh my God, people are looking at me. What am I wearing right now? We're just walking around the house in this, but it's stylish, man. I love it. Get timeless looks with modern comfort from Mack Weldon, but you got to go to MackWeldon.com. You can get 20% off, which is pretty great, off your first order, but you got to use that code Big Thing. So head on over to MackWeldon.com and use that code Big Thing. All right, thank you to our friends over at Mack Weldon and Vessi. So excited to have both of them, and been working with them recently and have been so just blown back by both the footwear and the great clothes that they've been sending. It's fantastic. So go and check it out. You're going to love it. Links in the description, and as always, the pinned comment. All right, Peter, we talked about it, dude, when I started this, is that let's talk about this story, about this, the India story.
Yeah.
And then we'll kind of lead into where we think this can go with disclosure and all that. This is from UFO Secrecy posted this from the Daily Mail. And UFO Secrecy is a shout out to India. Senior Indian police officials reported UFOs that made baffling zigzag movements. UFOs spotted near Kudankulam nuclear power plant over 10 times in August, police said. One officer, an engineer by training, videotaped 2 separate UFO incidents. The roughly dozen or so incidents all involved apparent craft loitering oddly near the nuclear plant at the southern tip of the subcontinent and the Madras Atomic Power Station near the Kalpakkam along the country's east coast. Police Sub-Inspector Syed Abdul Qadir, assigned to the technical wing of the service's Tirunelveli office, an hour's drive north of the Kudankulam nuclear plant, told UFO expert Sabir Hussain he had filmed 2 videos of unusual airborne phenomenon. He said the way it stood still, the way it made zigzag moments, and the speed in which it disappeared, Qadir told reporters for the English-language Indian daily DT Next, all were different. Confirming his conversations with Hussain, Qadir told DT Next that he had personally spotted UFOs near the southern coast town of Kudankulam since 2020. He says after meeting UFO tracker Sabir and discussing with him, he told the paper, I am more than 100% sure that what I saw were UFOs. This goes into a bigger conversation, man, because like when we started talking about it on this show, we talked about the stuff that happened in Russia. We talked about Japan. We talked about China. We talked about, all South Africa. We talked about all these different places that have seen them over and over and over again. And here's another one now from India, which, Peter, goes to the larger conversation, man. Like, they talked about it in the Soul videos that a version of what catastrophic disclosure could be is if for a while, long time, 70, 80 years now, where the U.S. has been good at keeping close to the vest of what we have, other countries have been doing the same. But the question is, who will be the first to decide it's time to disclose now? Do you think that this is a real thing that is going to happen first? And will the U.S. be the first, if to disclose at all? If anybody does, do you think that they'll be the first to do it, or do you think it's going to be another country?
If I had to bet money on it, I would take the field, right? Everybody else but the U.S. being the first. Especially if you're considering like the major superpowers, right? Like if one of those countries, I can't see if everything that we've discussed is a possibility where, we have a military industrial complex that would thrive off of some kind of technology like this. Why would you disclose it, even if it was the case that there was both NHI and our tech that's advanced so much? I do think that a country, it's not, by the way, it's not the country themselves saying this, but it is probably what will happen, which is publications start to bubble up in more and more credible places until finally the government has to acknowledge it. And once a state actor acknowledges it, then I think at that point the snowball effect happens. Although we had what's his face from Canada, I forget what his role in Canada was. That guy, like the former head of whatever it was, talking about all this information. So it's like you're getting it almost from everywhere except here.
Yeah, but it's also you're getting it, but in the same way that you're getting other people, because it's when you get it from someone that it's legit, like not legit's not the right word, but when you get it from somewhere where they're hitting major news publications, and it's one of these things, I'm telling you, I know that I make a big thing out of it every week, but like once you have these stories that just pop, like, I mean, look, say what you will about us not knowing what the Havana Syndrome is, right? 60 Minutes just covered it, and they did like a full special on it. That's more than a lot of the stuff that's happening with the things that we've been covering here. And if a major outlet is covering like that, it brings attention to it, and it gets more people going, what is that? It gets people talking about it on social media, because 60 Minutes is an outlet. It's a respected outlet, respected program that you get it out there. And that's where, isn't that where Russ Coldhart was? He was at 60 Minutes, wasn't he? I think so.
I don't remember exactly, but I would assume that if you're seeing specials like that on News Nation, it's going to only increase the conversation. News Nation on 60 Minutes, it's only going to increase conversation.
Yeah, and that's on that particular thing. Now, that's not – now, 60 Minutes doesn't – just to be clear, 60 Minutes doesn't link the Havana Syndrome to UAPs. Right. That is the stuff that comes with theories and other people. And then they asked Lou Elizondo about it before that program aired, and he said he really couldn't comment on it. And he said that – so people, of course, from that started speculating on it more. And I should say, before we continue on talking about the countries, Lou Elizondo – is apparently, he's got a book coming out. We know that, but and I don't know. It looked like it. They said it is officially launching a YouTube channel. Did you know? I
saw that mention.
The question is that, and then someone asked if it was really his, and he didn't respond. But it would be interesting if he started his own channel, because you gotta get a better camera though.
Yeah, he's always like in some. It's like he's in some bunker.
Yeah.
It's so strange. I do think, man, I keep going back and forth. I'm like, would they let Lou Elizondo come out and talk all about this stuff if they didn't want him talking about it?
Right.
And then, so is Lou Elizondo some kind of operative?
That was our whole episode last week. That was our whole episode. Huh? Our whole episode was.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And so, if he's not an operative, how much can he really say? Is he trying to seed things so that, like breadcrumbs? Is this going to be some giant, mystery campaign where we're all figuring out what he's really talking about? Either way, it's a strange thing to me. And to tie it back to what we're talking about with the different countries, Lou Elizondo will broadcast to the globe, and someone will watch the video in a different country, and it might get them to start talking about it. And if by now our government hasn't come out and said something, either Lou Elizondo is the ambassador for disclosure, or any other, it's going to be another country besides ours. Because I don't think you're going to get a better way to disclose it little by little than having some kind of story time with Uncle Lou on YouTube once a week.
Well, that was the one thing, man, is that people go, well, how come other countries don't just come out and say it then if U.S. is being so sneaky about it? It's like, well, maybe they feel the same way. And maybe there's some kind of agreement or whatever it might be, but there's also maybe they feel the same way in the fact that, well, don't you think Russia would right away say, well, we do have evidence and we do have this, and then the U.S. will yeah, tell us what you got, sure, disclose,
right?
Yeah, tell us exactly what you got. What else do you have? Let us know. And and then they don't want to say anything because they're like, well, if we do this big disclosure thing and we tell people that we have indeed found this and we're working on that, then we're giving up information. So
and then you can blame them for things, right?
Yeah.
You can blame them for obscuring, and also if you're just trying to draw information out of the U.S. and you admit to something that doesn't exist and U.S. knows it, then you just admit to what you don't know. You know what I mean? So I don't know, man. I'm really stumped on this one, to be honest with you. But I would believe there would be another country. The other thing is, someone mentioned, I forgot who mentioned this, that part of the reason why there might be so much difficulty with the United States disclosing this is because of the amount of people in high positions who believe this is, somewhat tied to their religion and biblical angels and demons stuff. Other countries don't have that necessarily. Like, you know, they don't have that kind of structure in place that would at least give them pause when considering that connection. So I could see that as a reason that it would come more freely there. And that was what Lou Elizondo said one time, that there are people in high ranks who believe these are like biblical demons.
Right. And it does. Yeah, I've heard that. But I mean, religion though has been around way before the States though too. And it's like, so there's a lot of people that I think might feel that exact way, especially in I mean, who knows, because the Vatican is tied to this thing too. Yeah. So who knows what their ultimate belief is in it. I don't know. And it goes back to that conversation though of, we go through this, and I think you've been on the show and we've talked about it. I go back and forth. I mean, you and Riley talked about it this one point. I go back and forth to where I think, okay, as I asked Tim Gallaudet, will we see disclosure in our lifetime? And he was adamant. He was like, yes, we will. I go back and forth of whether or not I think that it's just going to be, because there are things that we're covering today, and there are things that I think are important that we're talking about. But I will say, since that Arrow report, it does seem like it has slowed things down. Not from the people who are trying to get the information out there, not from the people, but like News Nation and The Hill, they were covering this thing 3 times a day. I haven't seen a freaking piece except since I think there was 1 or 2 that came out when the Arrow report maybe came out, or there was something else that they covered that was interesting. But for the most part, nothing. They've been silent on it. So what do you think's happening right now? Do you think that it'll change at all in the summer? Will there be some reports? Will there be some more hearings? What do you think's going to happen?
I really think it's like a 3 steps forward, 2 steps back thing. So in other words, like, we're still moving forward, just not as quickly as it looks sometimes. And so, you know, I think every time a new story pops off and it gets wider mainstream attention, you get a little bit more people looking into it more regularly. So over time, I feel like that creates a critical mass of people who just want to know stuff, right? Like, you know, our government is always reactionary. They don't take the initial step, you know, in big civil liberties movements, for example. They wait till the people have boiled over and then they react. So I think it's going to be something like that. It's going to need to be either some really damning document, some really credible witness, or some really like undeniable piece of video or photographic evidence that gets the whole thing, you know, to move. But I do think you and me will see it. I mean, you're older than me, so maybe not you. I'll see disclosure in my lifetime, probably.
Not by much, buddy. Yeah. So there's so I agree with you though. I think that it's a struggle, right? It's a struggle with what everybody is working on and what a lot of these people, the heavy players, are really working towards. Because you look at Chuck Schumer, look at Rounds, by the way, and that's what we'll get into. Let's talk about Rounds real quick, because Matt Laslo, who has been just crushing it lately, he is someone who has been reporting on this a lot. He is the one guy that's like really, he's kind of dug in Washington, and every single time he's got a shot to ask some of these bigwigs that are dealing with this stuff in Washington, he does. And he got a chance to talk to Rounds, and here's the article. All right, ask a poll here. Senator Rounds was asked on the Pentagon response to UAPs. If it's ours, they may not want to address it, is what Rounds says. And here's a picture of it. So Matt Laslo over at Ask a Poll. I'm going to play this audio for you guys. So this is another one. Here is Mike Rounds talking to Ask a Poll.
Like, how worried are you that we still are having these sightings over sensitive U.S. military?
Let me share. I sit on armed services, I sit on intel. I care about the UAP issues, okay? As near as I can tell, based on everything I've been able to glean so far, the biggest concern that we should have is either our very sensitive programs being opened up, or other countries' very sensitive programs being actively engaged. Both of which would be of concern to me. So far, it's a matter of let's make sure that we don't disclose what we actually have capabilities for in our investigations. Second of all, if there are some items out there that are not ours, where are those capabilities coming from? Which other country may very well have them, and what are we doing to counter them? Those are there's always the possibility that we haven't figured out where all of this stuff is coming from. If we can't answer them, those are the two things that I worry about, is that we either expose one of our very sensitive programs, or we've got an adversary who's got a very unique one that we haven't been able to explain yet.
With the Pentagon having a nearly $1 trillion budget, like, how do they not address this? How's this been a persistent
if it's
problem?
ours, they may not want to address it.
Fair.
Okay, so when you hear that, that's exactly what we were just talking about, Peter, right? It's like, it's that, and he says this, look, if this is ours, they're not going to want to address it. And that's what we're saying. It's like, stop sniffing around and stop putting this stuff out there, because if we do, we're going to have to disclose all the stuff that we have to the other countries here, and they're looking for us to do it, and they're waiting, because now you guys have been putting so much pressure on us to disclose, and now we do, and guess what? Now because we did, now Russia knows what we have, now China knows what we have, and just because you guys wanted to know if things are floating around in space, and that's probably, a lot of people thinking that particular way. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty much what he said when it comes to the idea of it, where they don't want to tell people what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, the only two things I can ever think about when it's like, why would they not want to disclose it? If it's limited to our advanced technology that we developed on our own, then there's your reason. They don't want to disclose it because they don't want to share it, right? If it's that there actually is some kind of NHI and they still don't want to disclose it, well, then I think of three-body problem, no spoilers, which is like, there's something we can't, control. We have no response for it. And also we don't want to freak people out. Those are the only two legit options,
right,
that I could see for if it is non-human intelligence and if it's not.
Yeah. It's one of those things where you look at more information. Will it come out from any of this? And it is why I get more doubtful, because of the particulars of what he just said. It's that they do not want it to come out. They don't. And they're doing everything that they can. Whatever, and I'm not saying whatever, when I say they don't want it to come out, whatever the information is. Right. They don't want that information out. And they're doing everything that they can, whether it's getting people like Mike Turner or whoever it is, stop that thing, gut that thing that's going to give them too much information, and we're going to be in trouble here. And they found a way. They found a way to make it kind of, go kaputs, in the same way that they had the Project Blue Book for years, was saying, no, tell everybody, no. Right. And if we have this, and we tell it's essentially what Arrow is, I think now, right? It seems like Arrow is the new. That's what people say anyway. But
they call it Blue Book 2.0.
Yes. And speaking of Blue Book, Alan Hynek was like the main guy. And so if you know about him, he was someone who was put in charge of Blue Book. And then after all the investigations that he did, he said, something ain't right. You see, I'm supposed to be saying that this is nothing to see here, but there are some legit cases. And then he went on the opposite side of it and made it a mission. He was one of the advisors on Close Encounters of the Third Kind with Steven Spielberg, but he had just made a mission to try to get to the truth of it all. Well, we have a chance to have his son, Paul Hynek, on the show, and our on-the-grounds reporter himself, Pavel, had an opportunity to sit down with Paul Hynek, and they really got into it. A lot of great questions, and we are going to show you guys that one right now. And before we do, I do want to tell you about both Nutrafol and Roan, and then we'll get to the interview. Here you go. All right. I love getting you guys good deals, and I got it. Roan. There's so much pain in trying to find what to wear. Whether it's uncomfortable, it's tight, it's never your size, there's difficulty putting pieces together when all the fabrics are different textures. I know it happens to me all the time. You want to look good without having to think about it. Well, that's where Roan comes in. They stepped up to the challenge, everybody. They got the commuter collection. It's comfortable, it's breathable, and it's versatile set of products known to man. They have products for every occasion, whether it's the most comfortable pants, dress shirts, quarter zips, polos, blazers. They look great as individual pieces and they work seamlessly together. Roan's signature 4-way stretch fabric, it's breathable, it's flexible, and it works everywhere from your commute to work to the 19th hole. It's time for unparalleled confidence without all the hassle. Roan's commuter collection features wrinkle release technology and it is 100% machine washable, looking good is that easy. I'm telling you, I love this. They sent me some of this stuff, guys, and first of all, they have the kind of just relaxing casual stuff, but I needed a good pair of pants to go with my suit, and my goodness, I got some for me. I got some for Riley. We're looking slick. It is so great. The commuter collection is easy to care for also, by the way, and it stays fresh and it's odor free. Just head over to roan.com/bigthing. Use that promo code BIGTHING. Save 20% off your entire order. That's 20% off your entire order when you head to RHONE.com/bigthing. Use that code BIGTHING. It's time to find your corner office comfort. Don't be embarrassed. Don't do it. Listen, did you know that 80% of men will experience hair thinning in their lifetime? It's normal, guys. But it doesn't have to be your fate. You can get ahead of thinning with Nutrafol. Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist recommended hair growth supplement clinically shown to improve your hair growth, visible thickness, and visible scalp coverage. Nutrafol's hair growth supplements use physician-formulated, natural, science-backed ingredients. Their drug-free, patented technology provides consistent, reliable results without compromising your sexual health. Go to Nutrafol.com/men to take their hair wealth wellness quiz. Identify causes of your thinning hair, and Nutrafol will give you a personalized plan for better hair health through whole body wellness. It works. In a clinical study, 84% of men showed improvement in their hair after 6 months taking Nutrafol men's hair growth supplements. Everybody feels this way as you're getting older. You're like, oh man, am I the only one? Why is this happening to me? This and that. We're in an age now where you can get it helped. You can get it fixed. Take the first step to visibly thicker, healthier hair. For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering our listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you go to Nutrafol.com/men, but you have to enter that promo code BIGTHING. Find out why over 4,000 healthcare professionals recommend Nutrafol for healthier hair. Nutrafol.com/men. Nutrafol.com/men and enter that code BIGTHING. That's Nutrafol.com/men, promo code BIGTHING.
Thank you, Kristian. It's an honor for me to sit down for a few minutes with Mr. Paul Hynek, professor of finance and accounting at Pepperdine University, entrepreneur, futurist, author, writer, consultant, and UFO researcher, who is also known for being the son of the father of ufology, Dr. J. Alan Hynek. How are you, Professor? How's it going?
I'm great. Thank you, Pavel. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you, sir. First of all, I guess I would like you to speak a little bit on the Contact in the Desert event. I understand you're going to be a speaker there. What are you going to be talking about? And what is Contact in the Desert for those who don't know?
Contact in the Desert is one of my favorite conferences. It's, each conference has its own kind of flavor or angle. And Contact in the Desert leans into science, not just UFOs, but other related topics in AI, etc. I'll be giving 3 presentations, moderating a panel on 2 other panels, and then behind a curtain for a secret demonstration. I'll talk about Ufology 101, which is sort of a primer for the, let's say, UFO curious. And I'll give another presentation on how to demonstrate the objective reality of your encounter so that you can demonstrate that they are real. And my other presentation will be, I call it Bitcoin astronomy, which is the nexus between UFOs, DMT, and Bitcoin.
So you also, I understand you were or I don't know if you still are a journalist, a tech journalist, right? You a freelance. You've written a lot of articles.
No, I mean, I've written some articles. I wouldn't call myself a journalist.
Okay. But you have written articles, and you also have a book called the UFO Technology Handbook.
Yeah, about potential propulsion techniques that spaceships could use.
Because I've been talking about this for a while now on my personal channel. And I did speak to Nick Cook. You know who he is?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And he told me that he hit a dead end in terms of propulsion technology because he has that famous book, The Hunt for Zero Point. Do you concur that this anti-gravitic technology everyone talks about, is that possible, or could it be real?
It's certainly possible, and I've worked with my brother and a friend of ours on trying to create essentially an anti-gravity machine. So far, without success.
Okay.
But in general, Pavel, I'm skeptical of the possibility of extraterrestrials from other planets visiting us on Earth. I lean more towards an interdimensional hypothesis.
Yeah, because there are many hypotheses. I've tried to read and catch up to all the other ones, but I do agree with you that extraterrestrial hypothesis is the least likely. And I think it's really interesting, though. This is not a nice segue. How Arrow has spoken about this on their report, this specific term of ET. What do you make of that report from Arrow and how they use that specifically? It seemed deliberate, right?
Yeah, I really don't care what the US government says or does regarding either UFOs or cryptocurrency. They are a bad faith, corrupt central actor that does not have the interests of citizens in mind. They have engaged for many years in active disinformation efforts. And so I don't trust, nor am I very much interested in what the government says or does.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you too on that. I think it's kind of funny to me that there's this wave of people that want us to trust the government with this. Given all the history they have, it's really rich, I think.
And, I've done this role play at UFO conferences where people are very much interested in, and let's say, believe in UFOs. And I'll say, let's do a role play. Pretend we are all the top brass of the United States Air Force. And we have gathered here today to decide whether we are going to disclose the information that we have. All of us in this room, we know everything, where the bodies are, the crashed saucers. We have all the information. And we have these subpoenas telling us we need to release this information. Now, in a minute, we'll take a vote as to whether we should release this information. But before we do, I'll tell you my attitude. General Hynek. No goddamn way am I going to release this information. I don't care what subpoenas there are. I don't care who the politicians are. I don't care about the Constitution. I joined the Air Force for full spectrum dominance, not compliance. It's my job to be on that wall. You want me on that wall to protect us. And I'm not going to let some pasty-faced pencil pusher on Capitol Hill tell me what to do. I am not going to release this information to the Chinese and the Russians. Okay, now let's take a vote. Who wants to disclose our secrets? And very few, if any, hands will go up.
Yeah.
That's the attitude that we're fighting against. And I don't believe that the Air Force should disclose this information. It's not their job to lessen our dependence on fossil fuel. It's not their job to advance civilization. It's their job to kick ass. And that's it. That's what I want them to do. So that's why I think we may be waiting for a long time for the type of disclosure that we see in movies.
Yeah, and also, well, given all that I've tried to read, all the hypotheses and all that, I think disclosure kind of already has been happening for decades.
Yeah, a lot of people consider it a process as opposed to an event.
Yeah. What do you think about that? Do you agree?
Well, again, I don't really care what they say or do. But let's say that they do want to disclose. It's much more difficult than it used to be. 30, 40 years ago, here in the US, you'd have a journalist like Walter Cronkite narrate live video of a flying saucer landing on the lawn of the White House. Everybody believes it. But now, if the Biden administration releases this information, the Republicans don't believe it, and vice versa. So it's a very difficult proposition for them, even if they do have the information and want to disclose it.
Yeah, I agree as well. I wanted to ask you like something a little bit more personal from your time growing up next to Dr. Hynek. Was this topic ever strange or uncommon for you and your family growing up? How did everyone in your family take it? Is it more normal than it could be for the rest of us?
Well, Pavel, however you grow up is normal to you until you're older and you look back at it and you tell your friends, oh, we did this. But I don't know a life without UFOs. We had flying saucer ornaments on the Christmas tree. We had UFO people from the Air Force or witnesses coming over for dinner all the time. And it was something that we talked about it quite often, and it was just part of our upbringing. So it was quite normal to us and fascinating. And we thought it was great.
I can only imagine like you went through something a little bit similar, not at all, but not completely, but to what the Bledsoe family is going. I would think, because they also have been around the topic their entire lives.
Yeah.
I think you went through something similar, right?
Yeah, and now I go to conferences and do TV, etc. I've done a lot of public speaking, but before it was about making movies like Avatar or some other tech topic. But there really is no topic in life that I'm more familiar with than UFOs.
And also, you seem still excited talking about it, even though you have been doing it for decades. That's
yeah,
cool.
I mean, this is an inexhaustible supply of fascination.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so with your father, Dr. J. Alan Hynek, he was the director of projects Sign, Grudge, and Blue Book. You've seen, I'm sure, online how people have tried to compare what your father was doing during that time before he revealed himself to be a believer of whatever this intelligence is. And there have been many comparisons with what Dr. Kirkpatrick is doing right now. What would you say to that, to the people that try to compare both and how they're...
I wouldn't say he was a believer, but he went from being a debunker and a skeptic to somebody who accepted the weight of the data. It's a little bit different for a scientist. They don't typically say the word believe, right? And I just don't know enough about Mr. Kirkpatrick to know how he might be like my father or not.
Okay, that makes sense. With that in mind, though, is there anything about your father that people may have misunderstood? Do you think?
Well, because I often talk about my father in the context of UFOs, people see him as a UFO guy. He didn't see himself that way. He was a professor and he loved communicating about science and astronomy. He was an astrophysicist and an astronomer. That's how he self-identified. So at home, like we talked about UFOs, but it wasn't all the time. UFOs were kind of a late in life side gig for him. So people think of him as all consumed by UFOs. And indeed, he spent a lot of time on it, but it wasn't his core passion, which was just simply astronomy.
Yeah. You've already given me what you think about this disclosure effort, but I still feel the need to ask you about what people like David Grush, Ryan Graves, David Fravor are doing. What is your opinion on what they are trying to do as people from the military? Because I know that you and I do not expect the government to bring about
Right.
disclosure, but what they have done, I think it has value. What's your take on what they have done?
Sure. I applaud them coming forward with their accounts, because it's one thing for some dusty document to come to light and it to be released online. It's quite another for an Air Force pilot to say, I saw something that cannot be explained by my understanding of our physics, and I want people to know about it. Or I saw something in a hangar that I wasn't supposed to see, or etc. It's very compelling, and I'm very happy that they're doing that.
Okay. And I understand you were a consultant for the Blue Book show.
Yes.
I was so excited when that show came out, I gotta say.
Mm.
I think it's really top-notch sci-fi for my taste. I've been a movie and TV shows addict for my entire life, so especially sci-fi. How was that process? How did you live through that time? Because I'm guessing you must have been really excited to be participating in something like that.
Well, my brother Joel and I learned about the show that was being made, and reached out to the production team, and they were happy to get us involved and hire us as consultants. And this show was being made with or without us. And so we had a family discussion, and we thought, well, look, if we can get involved and not control it, but influence it to some degree, that's better than if we have no involvement. And for the record, I'll say it's not creepy at all to have the super villain from Game of Thrones play your TV father. He turned out to be a very nice guy, as was the woman who played my mom and Michael Malarkey and the whole cast. And often when you're a consultant on a movie or TV show, that means that the production entity will call you when they have a question. But in this case, since both my brother and I have a lot of experience in Hollywood, they gave us all the scripts to read in advance, and we could give them input. I visited the set several times and did publicity tours with the cast. So we were really integrated with the production of the show and made a lot of input in the show and became friends with the cast and the crew of the show.
One part of that show's storyline that I think it's really interesting was a part of when the late President Kennedy was still a senator, and he was speaking to Dr. Hynek and his partner. What of those exchanges could be perceived as more accurate in your view as a consultant of the show?
It's a good question. And in general, the show is very clear in saying that they are striving for authenticity, not accuracy. And I think you picked up on that message. Specifically regarding encounters with Kennedy, I don't know. One of the things that's interesting is I've learned so much about my parents after they passed away that they never said. I think a lot of people from that generation just wouldn't start a conversation saying, hey, did I tell you about the time I talked to President Kennedy? They just wouldn't bring it up. And it's in reading about him or hearing stories that I learned a lot of these things that I didn't know before.
And well, I speaking of those things that they don't talk about much, but I gotta ask about this because I think it's a fascinating subject. The whole concept of the invisible college, which is a concept that was coined and created first in the late 1600s, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
But your
right.
father was the one who continued with that tradition. What can you tell us? Any details you can tell us that you know about that, even if you didn't learn them directly from your father, maybe later?
Yeah.
Too?
So it was my father and his longtime friend and collaborator, Jacques Vallée, who realized that there were a lot of mainstream scientists, especially astronomers, who privately were very open or leaned into the idea that we might have some type of alien visitors. And my father liked to call them meta-terrestrials, as opposed to exclusively extraterrestrials. So meta-terrestrial, meaning that they're not from Earth as we know it, which is a much broader spectrum than just from another planet. And so Jacques and my father were very sensitive and understanding that scientists couldn't publicly reveal their stance. And indeed, I have copies of letters between Arthur C. Clarke and my father, where Arthur C. Clarke tells my father that publicly I cannot speak in support of UFOs, but privately I'll tell you I very much appreciate and respect your outlook, Dr. Hynek, on UFOs. And so Jacques and my father felt it was important to kind of create an intellectual safe space for them to share their feelings and their outlook without being disclosed publicly.
Okay, and what do you know about the Rosicrucianism, which is also another tradition, but I understand your father and Dr. Vallée were part of it too. Is that right?
Yeah. You know, people tend to think of my father, and, you know, as scientists are portrayed in TV and movies, and not just Project Blue Book, they're often, because for one part, you need to have a knowledgeable voice, but you can't bring in a new expert every episode. So typically what they'll do is make a scientist who's a smart person know everything about science. And also kind of almost become like Dr. Spock from Star Trek, where they're always talking about that's not logical, I cannot compute. And logic is not a word my father would use a lot. He's a physicist. It would talk about viable or likely. And so my father, although he wasn't a dogmatically religious man, he did have Rosicrucian leanings. And indeed, after he passed away, one of the Rosicrucian tenets is to not disturb the body for 3 days. So we honored that wish.
Okay.
And he also was very interested in Rudolf Steiner and the Theosophy movement.
Yeah, I know that well. I am actually, I do have my own investigation in my channel that has a lot to do with the universal language, is what I call it, which Steiner spoke about it plenty. Itzhak Bentov spoke about it in an indirect manner. And I find it fascinating. I wish I could go more deeply into topics like this. But
I have a funny story for you, Pavel. So yeah. I went to graduate school at the University of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia, and I lived in the dorm on campus. And that dorm was right down the street from a restaurant called the White Dog Cafe. And it's a row house, and it's a lovely restaurant, one of my favorite restaurants. And it's the former house of Madame H.P. Blavatsky, who was a pioneer in Theosophy. And it's called the White Dog because in the late 1800s, she was diagnosed with gangrene. And the doctors told her they would need to amputate her leg. And she said, fancy that. I'll not have my leg enter the spirit world before me. And she credited sleeping with her white dog as having cured her. So that's why the restaurant is named the White Dog.
That's an amazing story. Thank you. Yeah, it does. I guess that's like the ultimate search, the ultimate question one wants answered, right? What happens after we die?
You're absolutely right. I mean, what are the biggest questions to face mankind? Is there life after death? And then is there life elsewhere? And are they coming to see us? And why? But those are, and then maybe what's the meaning of life? I think those are the top 3 questions for mankind. And so my father, he felt his job was to push mainstream science, the borders of scientific understanding, a little bit farther out, and to take a flashlight and to illuminate those sort of dark corners. And so he worked for quite a while on one of those super important questions.
And you told me that you believe more in the interdimensional
Yes.
hypothesis. Can you please expand more on that? And because I think there are more than one interdimensional hypothesis. One is
Yes.
one is more religious, and there are others that are more scientific. Where do you land on
So
that?
I would say mine is psychedelic.
Oh my God.
I was asked by a friend of mine who crash landed tardigrades on the moon one day where my father thought UFOs came from. And I said, well, as a scientist, he was very comfortable saying the weight of the evidence suggests that something is happening, but where they come from, that's sort of beyond a scientist's knowledge base. But my father would say that, as we've talked about, the extraterrestrial hypothesis, it doesn't seem that likely. It seems a little bit sloppy, and maybe it's interdimensional or time travel. Who knows? So my friend said, whoa, you need to read a book called Alien Information Theory. And I said, Alien Information Theory? That's maybe the sexiest book title ever. Of course I'll read it. What's it about? And my friend said, well, it's by a neuroscientist named Andrew Gallimore, who believes that the experiences people have under the influence of DMT, the most powerful psychedelic drug in the world, one variant being known as ayahuasca, are actually real experiences in some other kind of dimension. And I said, oh, you mean, so my dad thought UFOs may come from another dimension, and DMT is thought by some to be a ticket to another dimension? In the interest of science, I need to try that.
Yeah, actually, my channel has a lot to do with that. It's called Psicoactivo. It means psychoactive in English. And that's how I named my channel, because I also believe much of this. And I think that the Imperial London College is doing a mapping of a place through DMT. Is that correct?
Yeah, they're trying to map the topography. And so I become fascinated by DMT. And so that's why one of my talks at Contact in the Desert is the nexus of UFOs, DMT, and Bitcoin.
Oh my God. I never done that specifically, but I did delve into many psychedelics back in the day. And I can sense that which I mentioned already, that universal language, which it keeps coming to my mind. And it just essentially, it's not really that difficult to understand, but it is difficult to practice, because I think it has to do with empathy towards others. It has to do with trying to always put yourself in the shoes of another person whenever that person is going through something very difficult. And I think that these substances help reach that goal quicker. But I think also that alongside the UFO topic, psychedelics have been stigmatized for decades, since the 60s. And I don't think that's a coincidence, because at that time, the one thing that was putting people off from going to war and killing others were psychedelics, and was the whole psychedelic movement. And I think, I don't know why I feel that if that hadn't happened, we would have possibly had a better chance at evolving our minds.
Yeah, well, I'm sure you're familiar with the stoned ape theory.
Yes.
That our early ancestors, by dint of psilocybin and perhaps other substances, really took a big step forward in our evolution. And yeah, I completely agree with you. Fortunately, here in the United States, which is often very regressive, there is a sort of resurgence of clinical prestige regarding psychedelics.
Dr.
And a lot of studies coming out showing the therapeutic benefits of supervised and therapeutic use of psychedelics.
Yeah, but Paul Stamets is doing a lot of work there.
Yep, Paul Stamets is a hero of mine.
Yeah, Dr. Rick Doblin too. But
Mm-hmm.
he's doing it with MDMA, if I'm not
Yep.
mistaken. So yeah, that's really exciting. I do think that it's still too expensive for regular folk, but I'm glad they're doing a lot of advancements there. And
Yeah, and DMT is actually not expensive at all. It just needs a better marketing agency because it's relatively unknown. And for my money, the best and most fascinating substance there is.
yeah, and also I wanted to ask you about the because I was speaking last week. I did an interview with Professor Simon Holland, who broke the news that SETI found ET images or images from another star system, and they're trying to decode them right now. But he was told from a person from EU SETI that this happened, and I was very curious to hear that in the US there's like a lot of the top brass and politicians and elites who are very scared of investigating stuff like this because of their religious beliefs. And
Yes.
I guess that has a lot to do with another interdimensional hypothesis, right? What do you think about that?
Well, it's a very good point, Pavel. Lou Elizondo mentioned that also, that when he was circulating reports that he'd written, his superiors would sometimes just dismiss it because it wasn't consistent with their religious beliefs. And I think, I don't want to get too far afield here, but I think it's a very real problem that we have these people that are very dogmatic. There's a quote often attributed to Richard Feynman that my father quite liked and that I like as well, that there are two kinds of people in the world. The first kind are okay if they have questions they cannot answer. The second kind are not okay if you question their answers. And it breaks the world into two types. And if you're really interested in the UFO phenomena, and especially if you haven't had a deeply personal experience, you by definition have to be comfortable with a lot of questions you cannot answer. Like the way we've been talking. It could be extraterrestrial, or that could be part of it. We don't know. And for a lot of people though, they're uncomfortable because they say, well, yeah, I know there's evidence. I know the New York Times and the Navy have said that there are UFOs, but I don't know where they come from or why they come here or what they eat. And they just shut down and won't think about it anymore. It's an awkward intellectual resting point to lean into a phenomena, whichever phenomena, and say, yeah, I think something's happening, but I don't know what. And I think it's dangerous that in the US, we have this gene in our makeup that predisposes us to be very dogmatic and very, and this is the truth, this is the reality, and I won't listen to anything else. And I think it's a growing risk for us.
Yeah, I agree. And also I think that maybe, I don't know, what ways do you see this message or getting people to understand that this is very real? Because I see that the large majority of people who consume media in America are not even interested in this. Many of them get weirded out. And
Yeah,
I guess what Kristian and I are trying to do, along with Mark Riley and many other channels that are new to this, is trying to bring the information to people and helping them, or maybe help them understand that it's real. We honestly, I don't think there's anyone specifically who knows what it is, or if it's many things, but at least maybe help get some of that stigma out and that weirdness that comes when you hear something that scares you, right? What do you think about that?
well, good for you. For a lot of people, their concern is paying rent and putting food on the table. And this topic, more than likely than not, is not going to affect that. So it's just something that is cool to think about, but what can I do? It's not going to help me. And those people, more power to them. Do what you need to do to get by. For those who have some extra bandwidth to devote to something like this, that's so ineffable and ephemeral, yeah, I think it's very nice for them to be able to come across a podcast like yours of a honest interlocutor trying to find the truth. And I sense that you don't really have a horse in this race. You just want to find the truth. And I think people, by doing that, you can welcome people into this. I mean, you're not wearing a tinfoil hat. You're not doing some kind of special salute. So I think you can help people come along the UFO curious and lean more into the phenomenon.
What do you think? Just a couple of more questions, though. I wanted to ask you about this idea that there's people who believe this technology was already cracked and it's being used for black projects, and people who think it hasn't been cracked yet, but they're trying to, but they haven't yet. Because your book is a lot about new tech, right? And what do you think there's any truth to that, or do you think it still hasn't been cracked?
I don't know, but I would say if some entity in the US, whether it's military branch or a 3-letter government agency, has essentially cracked key alien technology, had they done that, I think they would be speaking English in Beijing and Moscow by now. I just don't see that we sit on that and continue to feel threats from other countries. No, like I said, they're here for full spectrum dominance, and they're not going to sit by if they have the best technology ever. They're going to want to use it, and not in a limited way, but to achieve dominance before another country can achieve dominance, say, through terrestrial AI.
Okay. And I have one last question. We could cut this out if you feel that
I'm good.
we can cut it out, but I'm going to ask it. Is there anything that you maybe haven't shared with the world about your father's work that you may want to share with the audience that you haven't shared yet, that you can share, obviously, because I guess there's a lot of stuff that maybe you don't feel
it's an interesting question. I don't know. After Project Blue Book, my father was pretty open. And I don't really feel, I don't have a security clearance, so I have no limitations on what I can say, perhaps limitations on what I can see. But there's not really any burning thing that I'd like people to know that we haven't disclosed, my siblings and I, about our father. I mean, he was a little Czech boy in Chicago who didn't speak English until school, who at the age of 7 decided he wanted to be an astronomer, followed his passion his whole life. And along the way, a funny thing happened and he got drawn up in UFOs and did his best to push us closer to an answer.
All right. Thank you so much for that. We're going to leave it here, but before that, I would like to thank you, Professor Hynek, for giving us your time. This was a really nice conversation. We hope it's not the last time we speak. I hope you enjoyed yourself, because I certainly did. I wanted you to tell the people where they can find you and what you have going on right now that they can look forward to.
Sure. Thank you. And it has been great, Pavel. I have a pretty anemic social media footprint, but I guess the easiest place to find me is on Twitter or X, just Paul Hynek.
All right. And you're going to be on that Contact on the Desert?
Yes, I'll be at Contact in the Desert.
What are the dates of that? I'm sorry.
May 29th through June 3rd.
All right. And you're going to give it many talks or just?
Yeah, several talks and several panels.
All right. Where is that exactly?
It's in Palm Desert, which is about 2 hours east of Los Angeles.
All right. So for anybody who wants to go,
It's a great conference.
I'm guessing there are tickets still. So we're
I
gonna
think
leave
so.
it-
And
we're
it's
gonna leave
all in
everything-
one hotel. Everybody's all together. At any one time, there are 7 different talks and panels going on.
All right. I'm guessing there are still tickets, so I'm gonna leave the links in the description for
Mhm.
everyone who wants to do it. Thank you, Professor Hynek, for your time. I'll see you soon, and yeah, have a great rest of your week.
Thank you, Pavel. Enjoyed it.
Have a good one.
All right. Thank you to Pavel, and thank you to Paul Hynek for joining us on the show today. A lot of great stuff there that Pavel got. So make sure that you leave your comments, click those like buttons. There was a lot of great stuff that he got there. So, and also thank you to both Roan and to Nutrafol, all of our sponsors. They're in the description of the video, and they're always the pinned comment. All right, Peter, I think, my man, that's the majority of what we have here today. We got a lot covered. We got a great interview. We have a lot of the things that have happened with disclosure with other countries. I think you and I are both on the same page that I think that that's probably how it's going to happen. Someone's going to leak something. I think that's the big thing, right? Someone's going to leak something huge.
Yeah.
And I feel either you or me, one of us is going to text the other one. It's going to be like 3 a.m. And it's going to be like, dude, turn on.
You have permission,
Yeah.
by the way. You have permission to wake my ass up. If you find out something like that and I haven't texted you first,
Same.
repeat. Hit the button where it says silent. He has it on silent, but wake his ass up anyway.
Yeah, for real. It's like,
Yeah.
I'm telling you, I think that's where it's going to come down to. It's just like, it's going to be one of those things where we're going to be just checking our phones and something big's going to drop. Now, whatever that is. Now, we thought it was the jellyfish thing.
You took the words out of my mouth. I was about to say the last time I felt like that was the jellyfish. But, dude, let's look on the silver lining here, which is that there are more moments that are close to that than ever before.
Well, yeah, look at the stuff that James Fox is talking about
That's what I'm saying.
in his documentary. Like, James Fox has dropped some crazy stuff in the past, and like, what's he going to do? Is he going to be the one that drops something where he's been on the sidelines for a little bit.
Yeah.
Like
amped up now.
He's amped up. He's been on the sidelines for a little bit. Like he was when all the stuff was going on with Grush and everything, he was out there tweeting, he was out there getting into it, and and I know that he had his lawsuits and the other things that were happening, but he's been on the sidelines, and you had all these kind of players out there doing their thing and making some moves. And he's just been working on this film. So what's this film going to do? I mean, if anything, is it just going to be another one that because look, I mentioned Darcy Weir's, right? Darcy Weir to me had a good USO documentary. I really enjoyed it. And when I was watching, I had a lot of great information, but it's not it didn't have anything in there that you're like, oh, everybody now is talking about it on CNN, on Fox, on MSNBC. Like they're like, oh, like look at what they covered in this. This is proof. It's not. It's a great documentary that just makes you start opening your mind, and that's what a lot of James Fox's stuff did in the past too. Now the question is, because for God's sakes, if the Darginia one.
I know.
Didn't get
Varginha. That one. That's what I'm saying. Like, well, that's what I'm trying to say. Look, you can only have so many moments like the Varginha one, like the South Africa case. Like, dude, the jellyfish, dude. We were all interested in that one, whatever it was, whether it was just future military tech that we don't know about yet. And then somebody had to trace some balloons over, and everyone says, I give up on it already. Right. But like we're gonna have one of those things come out. This video. This documentary James Fox has all the big players in this space. They're incentivized to keep this going, and so what's either going to happen is they're going to burn out, putting out nonsense that we don't care about, or someone's going to get that juicy piece of something that reignites and sparks the whole thing for another few months until someone else has to. So that's where I think the game is now. It's like just stringing these things out. It's like, I got this one, and I raise you with this one,
I hope, because but there needs to be one, as we talked about last week, there needs to be one, if you look at the jellyfish and say, okay, there needs to be one that says, there's one, if you keep watching it, it goes in the water, but we don't have that footage. And then this is like, no, we have that footage.
Exactly.
That we have this footage has to be the next video. Yeah. It's got to be.
I'm still in on the jellyfish.
I am too.
Where are you on it?
I think it's something. I think it's
It's
something.
definitely something.
I think it's
at least crazy
it's
future
not,
tech, right?
you know me and the balloons. It's like I just saw somebody.
bullshit.
Someone sent me a story to cover today about the guy that was on Rogue, and he's like, and they were asking him about some other UFO, whatever it was, and he thinks that they're all balloons. And I'm like, come on with the balloons. Like, give me a better answer than that. It's
No.
I don't need you to tell me that they're from other dimensions. I don't need you to tell me that they're alien. I just need you to tell me that they're not balloons.
Now, balloons,
Everything's
you
balloons.
can't use that anymore. It's hack now
I
to use
hate
balloons.
the balloons. I hate the balloons. It's like everyone always talks about the balloons. Come up
And
with
you can
something
just
else.
trace whatever you want into a balloon. There's a balloon of everything in the world. There's literally a balloon of anything you want. So you can just trace anything. Go, look, it's a balloon of this holiday. You know what I mean? Come on.
Yeah, the balloons. The balloons is it's just it drives me nuts. Anyway. All right, we had a very stacked episode here today. I want to thank Peter for joining me. Where can I find you today?
Everywhere online at Attack Peter, Instagram at Attack Peter, and Twitter at Attack Peter or X. A lot of you have found me, so I'm assuming that's all I have to say. So thank you so much to everybody who's reached out and sent me cool stuff. I look at all of it. Sorry if I don't have a chance to respond to it, but I look at all of it.
And I appreciate you guys joining us on the show each and every week. As Peter said, though, too, like, it is so great to have you all here having these conversations on all the comments every week and all the and getting, whether it's Twitter or these other things, people sending us stuff through the email and going to the Down to Earth channel, all that. Please subscribe to this channel. It helps us grow. We get more interviews like we did with Paul Hynek today. We have I'm pretty sure, I don't want to announce the one that I have coming up for next week, because if it falls through, then it looks like, then I hate doing that. But it's because you guys are growing the channel. They look at these things. They go, okay, well, how many people are watching this show? How many people are subscribed to this channel? That helps us get people. So join the channel today. If you're like, well, I don't really subscribe to channels, do it today. It's free. So Apple Podcasts, Spotify, on the Down to Earth podcast feed, do that. Thanks to Pavel. Thank you to Paul Hynek for joining us here today on the show. We will be back next week, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.